I can. Okay, we hope he'll be with us very soon. I definitely notice he's around, but it's not able to speak to us at the moment. So, dear listeners, as always, we have a new topic, and guess what? It's the new year, so we've chosen the topic New Year, New Beginnings. And we'd love you to join us with any question or comments. The number to contact us, it's a UK number, which is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. I'm going to begin with what is the Grail message? The Grail message, in the light of truth, by Abrushin, is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of creation, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with the matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you again, I wish everybody a Happy New Year, and the topic we'd like to discuss tonight is New Year, New Beginnings. And as always, we'd love you to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. I'm going to try and bring Brother Reiner back on our group, so he'll be there. I hope he's there now. Just making sure he's joining us now. Oh. 1 second. Okay, I think he's there now. Brother Reiner, are you there? Hello? Brother Reiner, are you on the call now? I'm going to, Brother Gregory, I'm going to start with you now, and then hopefully I can get Brother Reiner back on to join us.
Okay.
So, first of all, New Year. For me, it straight away gives you a picture of hope, celebration, opportunity, starting afresh, setting new goals. That's a new energy. That's the sort of feeling or sensing you get when you think of the word New Year. And obviously, New Year's Day, people have been celebrating overnight as the coming New Year has been coming in. So, I would like to ask you, Brother Gregory, the way people celebrate this New Year and how they go about it. How is that, would you say, looked at in a spiritual sense? Is it too earthly, or is there some spiritual aspect in their celebration? That's to Brother Gregory.
Well, thanks for that particular question. As with everything, whether it is here on earth or not, there is always an earthly part of it, that which we see, and the non-earthly. So you then have to say, which one do you hold on to very dearly? The key thing here is that the expression New Year gives the impression of starting anew, gives the impression of continuity from that which is old, but there should be a transformation to that which is new. The idea of a new year is very similar to the idea of a new day. In fact, they are very related. In a new day, you have the morning, or in which you have fresh energy to use, afternoon, and then the evening, and then you have the night. And then the cycle is complete and it starts all over again. But definitely in the morning, one is very fresh. The same thing happens when you have a new birth, where at birth you have the celebration, people are happy, and we have a child. The child has to.
Brother Gregory, are you still there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I just lost you for a second. So you said the birth of a new child, if you carry on from there.
I say from the birth of a new child, you have that the child needs to mature and goes to adulthood and goes to old age, and then you have a transition. But what is different in this particular case is that man still has his physical body, but at the same time, man realizes that there is something new. Just like you have a season, we now have an annual repetition. So at the beginning of the season, which is spring as such, you find that there's a lot of energy. All right, there's refreshment, and people need to move on with all that, and they have plans on what they need to do, like you have in nature. So with the new year, it's as if another opportunity has been granted in space and time for the human spirit to mature. Our goal basically is to mature here using earthly experiences, evaluating these experiences, and maturing in order to go back from whence we left as unconscious spirit germs, and will have to return as conscious or self-conscious spirits. but this time not spirit gems. So if we sort of view it from that perspective, then a new year is more like a new beginning, granted new opportunities to live afresh, to review everything we have experienced so far, review it in the right perspective, and mature. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Gregory. I believe Brother Rainer is now back online, so I want to welcome him. Brother Rainer, welcome to the show. Please tell us, how are you?
Yes, hello, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, Happy New Year to you.
Same to you,
And
both of you.
yes,
Thanks.
and please tell us, as always, where you are and how is the weather where you are.
Ooh, I cannot see the weather, it's too dark.
Okay,
Pitch black.
it's black.
But
Is
I
it?
think
Go on.
it's kind of not too nice, let us say.
Okay.
Warmish winter days. Uh, Not really cold as it should be. And so the usual mishmash of
Okay.
weather.
Right.
And here I'm in Germany, of course, and I'm telling you straight away you got the weather report from Germany, Münster.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. That's essential for the start of our show. So thank you for that. And what I wanted to ask, of course, we're talking about New Year, new beginnings. That's our topic for tonight. And I wanted to talk about how people celebrate that, and and how it should be done in a spiritual sense, and rather than, let's say, the material sense that we are more commonly see. I wanted to just ask you almost as basically the same similar question to what I asked Brother Gregory, really. How do you view the celebrations that we have at the moment on the earth in terms of a spiritual perspective? What how do you think about when they do the fireworks and when they make resolutions, and when, I don't know, it's just parties and things like that people make it a social thing, and is that?
Yes, I think that's what it is mainly nowadays. It's a social gathering, and I was yesterday at a New Year's party, and well, just here, my wife invited a few friends, and I mean, there was nothing spiritual, definitely nothing spiritual going on, and I think it's very difficult to start something spiritual nowadays with a kind of people. They are very anti-spiritual, and so we passed the time playing games and waiting for midnight, and then have the famous countdown, and there were people. Then we switched on the television around midnight, and there were people standing on bridges in Cologne, and fireworks going on, all over the city, kind of private fireworks. And it seemed rather very unhappy and sober things. There seemed kind of a loneliness. One celebrates, and but it's a sinister backdrop. There's not real joy. I would say some people were singing songs, of course, and all that, but I mean, I got the impression it's a very lonely mankind, and pretty much cut off. And if they try to have some festivities, there's no place for real joy and real looking forward and to the next year. And the people they interviewed, they didn't say a lot. Oh, how did you come here? And why did you come here? Oh, I came here. It was 2 weeks ago. There was my girlfriend's birthday, so I thought I sent her a trip to Cologne to stay there on a cold bridge, expecting the new year. So generally, I think I think the real joy and the spirituality can only return if we become spiritual again. And as long as we are not spiritual, we do not know anymore about real joy. There's no warmth in our hearts, and I think I could feel that in the people around, and of course there's a longing and people suffering also the people here at my party, but for some reason we stopped all political discussions.
Yes.
That was my thing at the start. No political discussions,
Yes.
because all the people, they are very left wing and politically correct. So I didn't want any of that talk going on. But yes, there's really not much spirituality going on, and on the other hand, spirituality is that what we are craving for and what we are longing for, and which would bring back warmth in those celebrations and light. And but at the moment, I think all over, I mean, it is not only the European people or peoples, or it's all over the world. It's pretty much, I would say, a material feast. So I give it back to you.
Thank you for that, Brother Rainer. So yes, dear listeners, as you can see, I think what I would say is really people have lost connection with with God and with spirituality, and the only thing they really know is the material things on the earth, and so when they celebrate, it's only that they can really connect with. So in a way, I think in a way this program, our aim would be to connect us back to the spiritual sense of what this New Year is about. So I'll go back to Brother Gregory now and ask him, yes, what is, I mean, people make new resolutions and they look at their life from the last year, what they did and so on. So would you say, is it New Year meant to be a time of reflection, looking back at the last year, and maybe, a bit like Christmas, where we said before that maybe we had some arguments with people or something like that, and we want to make good on that, because of the Christmas spirit. We don't want to have sort of not problems, but sort of a good relationship with people and happiness. So would you say this time of New Year is a time of reflection of the past year and maybe learning some lessons? And yeah.
Well,
yes, please go ahead.
well, it is good tradition to set certain goals. The fulfillment of these goals should bring one's some form of happiness, that some tasks have been completed. However, what has happened in the past has been that these goals are all earthly goals. They are all tied to material things. They are not connected to anything spiritual. And most of the time, these goals are not achievable because the framework is totally wrong. Even if these goals are achieved, there is this, yawning difference, or this massive, it's like you have something between you and the inner goals which you wish to achieve, and you don't know how to bridge it, all because the goals themselves have been made so very earthly. This is because the inner man that seeks to mature through activities have been cut off. So many a person wants to make sure that they have enough money, enough finance, and all they want all sort of earthly things. Even if at the end they have achieved this, they still feel unsatisfied. They still sense that unhappiness. They are joyless, and many people go into alcohol or into drugs. So it is good to set goals, but the goals first must be that of the spirit. because it is the spirit that needs to mature. A program like this helps to serves as a pointer that it is that which is spiritual we should seek for first before moving to some of the earthly goals which we find, the fulfillment of which still leaves a massive void deep within us. So, yes, it is good to have resolutions, but these resolutions should not be set by the intellect only. These resolutions should be set by the Spirit, the fulfillment of which will bring it spiritual joy and also earthly joy.
Thank you for that, Brother Gregory. I'm just noticing there's a bit of an echo. I don't know if you're having it on, if it's coming from my side or it's also from everybody's, because I can hear my own self actually a bit of an echo on my side as well. Is there an echo on your side? Can you hear something?
I haven't had any echo yet.
Okay, maybe it's just on my side. Okay, so we'll carry on. So following on what you're saying there, Brother Gregory, that we should have spiritual goals and focus on that more than the material goals. Is there any example you can give us of that we should be, setting for ourselves?
One is an example of a spiritual goal.
Yes.
Is that which has lasting value, which transcends that which is earthly. One of such goals could be that of patience and perseverance. One that is of love, intrinsic love. One that is of readiness to serve under any condition. The concerns for one's neighbor, the respect for one's neighbor. These are spiritual and transcends that which is earthly. It has nothing to do with, in quotes, money.
Thank you for that, Brother Gregory. So, okay, that's from what I'm hearing from you is that, it's something that basically good qualities in our character is what you're pointing to, developing.
Precisely.
Yes, So now, does that mean, again, I'm going back to you, Brother Gregory, on this. So I still want to just go into this about reflecting on, like, say, previous years or whatever past experiences, and maybe we can do something this year which we realize was not good from last year, from the, let's say, our behavior with people, and maybe we got angry with someone. So would you say we should make peace with such people? Should we go out of our way, specifically looking for those incidents and things, or should we just let things go as they are, and then when the next time some opportunity to meet that person comes, then we just start anew with those people? You don't have to say apologize for what happened in the past. You just simply, just change your inner attitude. That's because this year you have decided that you want to be, let's say, a better human being, and you want to be kinder, and you want to be patient, like you've said. And so do you just start acting that way now, or do you actually go back to say sorry of the behavior of the past, where you were not maybe aware, or you just didn't care at that time how you were?
One will say a bit of both. But before, the idea of, or the concept of peace does not mean there is no intrinsic motion. There is so much movement in peace. However, the basis of all peace is basically spiritual. That means one's striving should be such that one is able to show due respect, not only to oneself, but to others. In doing that, you establish a framework where you can connect to as many as possible. It is not something which will occur without one cultivating it. In little steps, the possibility is that you will get there. These will come only through experiences. The first thing is self-respect. Each personality should examine himself or herself. And as you wish to be that will be helpful to your neighbor, as you wish your neighbor to be also helpful and respectful to you, you should be the change deep within you in all that you do, first in your thoughts, in your activities, your action, your outward actions. These are the fine little things that one should cultivate. It is well and good to go and say, I apologize, but that doesn't solve a problem. The first step should be to hold a good volition, always to reflect that if there is conflict, if there is misunderstanding, it's most likely to be me who has misunderstood the situation or the scenario. First, to find faults in yourself. First, to remove those faults in yourself before you seek faults in others. If one is able to proceed in that, then in many cases, even the antagonist will show respect, because the antagonist will see the restraint. Having restraint doesn't mean that one is weak, because one is able to control one's personal emotions. That is the strong person. So many things have to be re-evaluated in the right perspective.
Thank you so much for that, Brother Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Blessed Radio. I wish you all a Happy New Year. Yes, it's the 1st of January. Yes, and we are live. This is Brother Saad, and it's the Spiritual Discussion Program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And the topic we're discussing tonight is New Year, New Beginnings. And we'd love you to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 313 66. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 313 66. Brother Ryan, I'm going to come to you now, and let's look at, we've talked about the spiritual aspects of, of our character and things where we want to develop ourselves. We talked about patience and so on, and I've done a bit of research, other people talking about New Year and spirituality. So one of the resolutions people have come up with is be here now. This is from one website that I was looking at. It says be here now, live in the present, practice during the day to draw attention to the moment and let go of the thoughts of the past and the future. Would you say that's also a good practice and to adopt, and how, if so, how does that benefit us?
Well, that's a very, very old principle, and it's very deeply anchored in the Gospels, in the Scriptures, and also in the Grail message, that we should live in the moment and experience fully the moment. And it's no use living in the past and realizing those things one have missed in the past, but really the experiencing all the things go on in the present, and what we do right now, and what decisions we take, and what we think, and what we talk, and what emotions we have, that determines our future all the time. And it's only the key to the future to make it better is right now. And that's also why I dislike a little bit to say, oh, I'll wait till I make the decision to become a better human being. I'll wait till the new year, and then I make big resolutions and a firework, and I create a blog where I write all my New Year's resolutions. That's not the way. That's, in fact, I think it's almost spiritual indolence. You wait for something special moment. If you want to start being good, each moment is as valuable as any other moment. So start to go on the right path. Start being good right now, not a second later. And there's of course one of the big enemies of today is is that we worry about anything under the world, about the future, and we are almost eaten up by anxieties. Our souls are being eaten up nowadays by the anxieties, and that's exactly why this advice which you just picked up, live in the moment, is very important. It says, do not so much worry about the future. Let me just read something from the Bible on this one. Try to find it. It says here, it's from Matthew. It says, no one can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and material things. And that's the key to all the understanding what follows now. This is why I tell you not to worry about your food and drink. Look at the birds, they do not sow seeds. They do not gather a harvest, and they do not store it in barns. Yet your Father in heaven takes care of them. And do not worry about your clothes. Look how the wild flowers grow. They do not work or make clothes for themselves. But in spite of this, not even King Solomon with all his wealth had clothes as beautiful as any of these flowers. So do not start worrying, where will my food come from, or my drink, or my clothes? Your Father in heaven knows that you need all these things. Instead, be concerned above anything else with the kingdom of God and what he requires you to do. Then he will provide you with all the other things. And I think you have to look a little bit at the interpretation of that. That's essentially what is meant with that sentence you said, live in the moment. But it is not quite so easy, live in the moment in a silly way, what Matthew here is saying. And he's trying to reflect the thoughts of or some thinking of Jesus. And in my opinion, it makes sense. So do not start worrying, where will my food come from? All those earthly things, or my drink, or my clothes. Will I have a pension? Will I be in old age all right? All those things. Your Father in heaven knows that you need all these things. Instead, be concerned above anything else with the kingdom of God and God. And that is it when we promise in the in the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, that is being concerned with the kingdom of God. This thy kingdom come, your kingdom come, just means I do everything so that this place on earth will become more like heaven, a more heavenly place. And therefore I have to act in a good way, in a better way. So that I spread happiness and good things. If I do that, if I really work to bring the kingdom of God down here on earth, if I try to fulfill his will and think of those, all the other things, all the material earthly things all that will fall into place. I will be provided for. And that's what he says. Instead, be concerned above anything else with the kingdom of God and what he requires you to do. You have to do what he requires you to do. Only when you do that, what he requires you to do, only then you do not have any more to worry and be anxious about the material welfare, about your material base here on life. And that comes in the Bible again and again. It's in the New Testament, and it's really beautiful. All the examples given there. And so I would say yes, this principle is right, but it's better we understand it also with the background of the Bible and the background of the Grail message. So it really means, as a precondition is, I do not have to carry too much about material things. If I carry about bringing the kingdom of heaven here on earth, all those other things will happen automatically. It's even in the Lord's prayers. I heard that once on the radio, very interesting remark, and he said, look, it says, give us our bread daily. Give us our daily bread. Give us our daily bread. So it says, do not worry about the daily bread of years ahead or the new year or months ahead. Just expect that if you do things right, you will get your daily bread, and stop worrying about tomorrow. And that's exactly the sense we have to live in the present, and how this quote is being, how this quote should be understood properly. It is not a thing, be senseless and be silly. It means really work on the main thing, serve your God, don't serve the material things. You can only serve one master, but if you serve God properly and try to spread heaven here on earth, this spreading on heaven will have as a consequence automatically that you will be also in a material sense, that you will be looked after also in a material sense. I pass it back to you, Brother Saad.
Thank you so much for that, Brother Rainer, because you highlighted, well, we just know how the world is. People are only after the, just survival, making ends meet, and there's no time for spirituality from that. But you're saying focus on the spirituality first, and then everything else will come to you. And
yes, and Matthew is saying that.
Or Matthew's saying
Bible
that. Matthew's saying that. Bible's saying that. And then you highlighted, when we say live in the present or in the moment, again, it needs to be taken in the right context, not just experiencing things on the earth, but actually realizing, appreciating nature, all that in that moment, so that it's not your worries of the, as you say, past or the future are ruling you. You're actually experiencing, right in that moment what it is, and then you enjoy it, isn't it? Rather than worry about the future and you don't know how it's gonna happen. And here you just feel at peace because you're just enjoying this moment, and then you have confidence that if you are actually acting aright in, with your focus, then you will get what you're supposed to get materially.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you for highlighting that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Brother Gregory now. Let's see. Okay, what about another practice that people do? It's not for New Year, but it's a daily it's a spiritual thing. People going to worship, and this could be considered a meditation with some religious practices. It's not always religion though, and even exercise like yoga and things like that. Do you think, Brother Gregory, those things have any spiritual advantage at all? And And is it, yeah, do you think that's required, or we just focus on our character? So that's like you mentioned a bit earlier.
Most of these things depend on who is practicing. If there is a spiritual basis for such, that is why many go for, in quotes, worship. For worship has nothing to do with religion, nor has it got anything to do with a church or a mosque or any temple. Worship itself, which is adoration, can be carried out anywhere at and any moment in appreciation or in making use of those resources which has been granted to man, making use of these resources in the right context, in accordance with the laws of nature or the laws of creation, through which man himself or herself came into existence. Once that is done, that is pure worship. But many a time, some people prefer to move away from the madding crowd where they can commune with themselves, or they can come together with others in groups to show appreciation, to get focused. That is supported, and that is all right. But the intrinsic worship is not done by the group, but is done by the individual in how he or she relates to that which he or she has been granted. As long as these resources are used aright in accordance with the will of the giver, that is what is referred to as pure worship. What has happened in the past is that the essence of worship has been deleted or has been constrained. What one now finds is an outward thing, whereas the inward that which is profitable inwardly, the true worship is lacking. It's as if many a man only wants to show his neighbor that he or she is devout, but definitely inwardly, that particular personality does not appreciate that which has been passed on to him. So, group worship in quotes, all these things depends on the inner man, how he or she, or the inner attitude that the personality adopts during these particular hours. There are some that may say half an hour, some for hours, some will go for yoga and things like that. But most of these things are externals. It is the internals that count. It is the spirit that counts. All others are just tools in order to achieve that.
Thank you for that, Brother Gregory. I'm going to go back to you now, Brother Rainer. Just something that is sort of interesting, you could say historically. You know, in our last show, the topic was Christmas spirit. So we're celebrating Christmas then. And then, of course, now it's New Year. And obviously, you notice that the Christmas and New Year are very close together. And I just wondered if you have any sort of idea about why is it that we have a Christmas and we have a New Year, like you almost and we know the New Year is supposed to be dated after the birth of Christ. So, oh, sorry, the year, yeah, this at least this AD is after Jesus. So, is there any reason why we have sort of two celebrations? Sort of, is there something like we don't know when Jesus was born, and we couldn't make up our mind, and then we had to have Christmas Day, and we have had to have a New Year as well? Is there? Do you know anything about that?
Well, in fact, I think I have to admit I do not know.
Right.
And certainly I could not say with any certainty something, and I just do not want to concoct anything. Perhaps you have an idea about it, or Brother Greg?
I must admit I haven't. I hadn't really looked into it, so I'm just going to check with Brother Greg. Have you got anything about that?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Basically, I'm saying that New Year and Christmas Day are, the dates are very close together, and I just wanted to understand. And of course, the year, at least this year 2018 is supposed to be 2018 years after the birth of Christ. That's at least in an approximate way. So, do you know why we basically have these two celebrations, Christmas and New Year? Would you know any?
On the intellectual part, sometimes it's very difficult, if not impossible, to have any connection. But from a spiritual point of view, one now knows when the birth of Christ occurred that man will live forever because of Christmas Day. That means the possibility of salvation was then granted. So the birth of Christ and his whole being is that of granting, being the love, the divine love incarnate. All his activity was granting, supporting, giving out love. And it's only fair that in a new year, because it's very close, one should start afresh with vibrant energy, all right? Also, following his footstep, granting the necessary respect to many others, so as to sever all those ignoble traits which many a person has cultivated. It's as if one needs to sever the traits of the past which are unhelpful, and the new year only grants an opportunity to start afresh, just like we have a new day, just as Christ has come and his being granted us a new opportunity. So it is the newness. Had he not come, it would have been darkness, and man would not have existed, would not have seen the day or the light of day.
Thank you for that, Brother Gregory.
I mean, Brother Saad,
Yes.
of course, in Christianity we started counting time with the birth of Jesus. So we had this after AD and before AD. That was the timeline. Of course, you would take the time of birth as the starting point, counting the time. So from this way, I think that was the reason. Must have been the reason. There are in other cultures, the year starts at different times, like in India or the Muhammad world. I guess you can say in the Islam world,
Yes.
counting the time starts with the birth of Muhammad, doesn't it?
Not quite, not Muhammad, but it's there was a pilgrimage he did, and that's where they started that. So it's not exactly,
okay.
yeah. So that because they call it AH, after Hijrah, which is that pilgrimage. So yes, but
okay,
you're right.
after
Every tradition or culture or peoples, let's say, or religion movements, they have their own calendar. The Jewish have their calendar. The Hindus have their own calendar. It's true.
Calendar, yeah.
Yeah, they definitely do. But
we started with we
Yeah,
started with the birth of Christ,
that's right.
because we could say also during his lifetime, they say, oh, at this time, in this year, this happened, in that year, the other thing happened.
That's right. And I mean, the question was more into why are there two dates really? Because there's a Christmas Day and there's a New Year Day, and the New Year is supposed to represent. You'd expect the 1st of January to be the birthday of Jesus, but actually it's the 25th. And we know there's also, if you really went into it, there's also the Eastern Orthodox Christians. They celebrate it, on a different day. Their Christmas Day is different. It's in the New Year. I think 6th of January. I'm not quite sure actually, so I don't want to say something like that. They also
there was some reshuffling of the calendars and taking on a different calendars, and sometimes things didn't quite work out when they switched. I think to the Gregorian calendar.
Yes.
So that's why those slight time slips probably occurred, but that was perhaps a faulty calculation somewhere.
Yes, it's just something interesting. So I will leave it at that. Thank you for that. Now we'll go back to you, Brother Rainer, then, and let's talk about something spiritual, more spiritual. Let's see. Now, again, this is again from my research here. It's again to do with the new resolutions, and I know you're not happy with the new resolution because you believe it should be at any moment. Because why should you you have to have an excuse for a particular day? But let's just see it from a point of spiritual development. So, okay, let's talk about let's say we notice some weaknesses that we have, and I'm not can't think of a specific example in my head right now, and should we then, and when we recognize that, should we focus on that to develop ourselves in that field? That, I know Mr. Benoit mentioned, for example, patience as a spiritual sort of virtue or value. And so if, let's say, you notice some weakness, I'm trying to think of an example, really. I mean, in a way, you've also mentioned about anxiousness and worries. People have worries, and then just by being in the present, that they can, overcome that, and also focusing on the. So let me think. Okay, let's say listening to your inner voice, because we talk about that a lot in our intuition, and we know that the intellect is always interfering. So can we make some sort of, if I can use this word, resolution to develop our intuition, and then how would we do that? How would we approach that? So maybe I can ask you that, Brother Rainer.
Of course, I think we should again start right away, trying to do that and strengthen our intuition, strengthen to pick up those vibrations with our emotional sensitivity. So to pick up the emotions, and that's really the core of the problem, or it's really the core of all the problems, is that we have lost the connection to ourself, and our self expresses itself through emotions, and we cannot understand, we cannot pick it up anymore, and it shows itself, it breaks through sometimes as a general sense of anxiety or depression, which really says that this is how our spirit is. It is depressed, it is cut off. Each one of us has inside a great stranger, and that is our own self. We are cut off from our own self, and we should pursue that, and we should not have an excuse, oh, I'll wait till there. It's like the famous waiter, the smoker who says, oh, I'll stop smoking on New Year's Eve. No, if you are serious about it, and you have seen that it is not a good thing, you do it right away. You do not put a good thing onto the long bench and wait till New Year comes or some other thing comes or my birthday comes. I would say this is just spiritual ignorance. If you are serious about something and you have understood what goodness means, you have to start right away. There is an obligation because we do not have time to waste. Time is something very special. I think that's in some other question which will come up soon. We do not have time to waste. We have a limited amount of time that we are granted to live here on earth, and we must improve ourselves. We must be good. And again, we must understand, how do I become good? Do I really look at a fault of mine and think around that fault? That would be the way of the analytical, of our analytical capacity, of our forebrain that works in an analytical way or psychoanalytical way. You do not need psychoanalysis and think about the problem and where does this special thing, my impatience, come from. If you, what Matthew said before, if you work on spreading heaven here on earth, just try to be good, you will see that with the time you will discover love, and with the time you will discover, well, you will discover what love is, and you will discover also that your patience will become stronger each day, without that you have to worry about constantly about, oh, there is a weak point, there's a tick list, and these are my weak points. One of them is I lose my patience, I blow my top, or I'm a little bit silly with money, or things like this. No, that all will fall in place if you just let the will or the desire to be good, that free space in yourself. So I think there's a wrong way of trying to get rid of faults, and this is to think and worry and be anxious all the time, your thoughts, and make a little list. Oh, this week I've been better, I've been much more patient than last week. If you work that way, you can be sure next week something will happen where you lose your patience worse than you ever did before, or something like this. But if you try to be good, and if you put God and the kingdom of God, like Matthew said, above everything else, then your disagreeable qualities will become less and less disagreeable, and your agreeable qualities will become stronger and stronger. And I think that is the natural way to go about these things. I pass it back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Brother Rainer, for that. Yeah, you just keep it, you're saying it, keep it simple and not get bogged down into this analytical thinking, and just, yeah, really just, because as soon as you answer, you can immediately see that, you know, once you start going that direction, it's like you'll be worrying about this, you'll be worrying about that. But rather, if you focus on something high, which is the kingdom of God, then, you know, although you may not know how to go about it exactly, it automatically, the concept already lifts you up. And then all these other weaknesses you don't think about the weaknesses at all. And in a way, you also said in that same quotation of Matthew that God already knows that you need your bread and you need your, you know, clothes and whatever else you need. He already knows that, so He will provide that. Obviously, we don't mean in a silly way of that you just walk about and, you know, and just hopefully something will just land on your head or something like that. No, you work for it, but the focus has to be in having that spiritual goal of the kingdom of God. So thank you again for the highlighting that. Okay, I'm going back to Brother Gregory now. Okay, I mean, what Brother Rainer pointed out was that we've lost connection with ourselves, you know, who we actually are. So now, a lot of people, again in my research, people are saying about self-love, and because people, when you look at yourself, well, I know everybody will be different, but a lot of people will have quite critical of their, I'm going to use the word weaknesses or shortfall, shortcomings, and then they don't, no, I don't look. I know this is all too earthly. Look, I don't look good. I'm fat, and let me not put it in that way, but maybe, like Brother Ryan said about faults, we have faults, and then we worry about these faults, and then. So my question to you, Brother Gregory, is it somehow we need to love ourselves, that we need to connect with that as well, that get to know who we are, and not to focus on these, like we mentioned already, these earthly goals of what we need to eat, what we need to wear, what job we need to work we need to have. So is it we need to connect, Brother Gregory, with who we are, and love ourselves? Do we need to do that as well? That's to Brother Gregory.
The expression to love oneself or to connect with oneself seem to be contradictory. From a spiritual point of view, it doesn't seem to make much sense. But from an earthly point of view, or intellectual point of view, it's as if on the one hand we have an entity, and on the other hand we have some other thing somewhere else. There's so much confusion, but the key facts must be mentioned, and which is that the inner man is of spirit. It is the spirit that is alive. It is the spirit that is in contact with the resources or the energy or the power that streams out from the one source. It is the spirit that is able to make use of this power. The spirit, however, has other clothing. When the spirit is able to work effectively, or to be able to work effectively on earth, it requires the earthly body. Without the earthly body, the spirit is unable to experience physically here on earth. Therefore, it is the spirit that counts. Once one knows that it's the spirit that counts and that it needs to experience, then there will be no need to separate and say, love oneself, and ignore this. What has always happened is that there is this spiritual indolence. That means the spirit is not active enough. Were it active enough or being on the alert, then is able to perceive the fine vibrations that assail it. As long as the spirit is not open enough to perceive these fine vibrations, then there is the danger that is unable to wake up, is unable to make use of the resources which it has been granted. The physical body has an instrument. That instrument is the intellect. The way the constitutions of things have gone is that the spirits vibrate, send information from the back brain to the front brain, and motion or activities are carried out either in speaking, or the physical body works from one place to the other, and many other things. That is information or activities coming from the spirit. On the other hand, activities from without goes from the outside to the intellect, the back brain, first the frontal brain, and then to the back brain and back to the spirit. When one sees that picture, then the question arises, where is the love for oneself that is being discussed? The key thing here should be that the spirit must be alive. The second key thing one will mention is that each personality must learn to receive. It is not when you wish something that you have an answer. Many a time, answers are even thrown at you even before the frontal brain picks this. Many things are put on one's path such that one may make use of this, reflect on it quietly, and mature through it. But on most occasions, these things are ignored, which only means that man has not learned how to receive. But the reception which is discussed here is reception of the spirit. For when the spirit is able to receive all those fine vibrations and make use of it vigorously, then it will lack nothing, because these things have been placed in its path such that it can perceive of these, make use of it. So the idea of self-love basically has to do with intellectual. The intellect that considers itself alone and doesn't consider others around it. Basically, the intellect only thinks in a very narrow fashion, whereas the spirit in a broad fashion. So one has to get the concepts right. And in that, one's motion, the personality is always in motion. It will understand patience and perseverance, that many a thing are passed on to it, even in its sleep, when it least expects it. It will also learn that it needs to respect others. And in respecting others, the returns will be that it will be respected. It needs to support others. And in doing that, the returns will be that it itself will be supported. So all these things are automatic from a spiritual standpoint. The problem has always been that man has not fully understood what it means to receive. Therefore, the idea of self-love is only a very narrow concept, thinking of one's faults. Of course, there is no child who learns to walk without falling now and then, but in learning the necessary lesson, it will know how to adjust itself, all right, to the surrounding and then move smoothly. But with self-love, the problem is always you look within a very narrow confinement and you say, okay, this is for me and me alone. I will learn the lessons this way. Whereas on the other hand, if you live a simple life, that means not trying to fashion your activity on that which is too great, but taking this in little chunks, in little steps, step by step. Before long, you arrive at the goal. But the basic thing which has been lacking is the lack of the knowledge of the laws of creation or the laws of nature through which the human spirit or the human being came into existence. And this has been the purpose of discussions like this, where through these discussions, one may glean out a few things and destroy the rigid casing that one has built around oneself. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Brother Gregory. I've got something to follow on from that, but first of all, I just want to tell the listeners, Happy New Year, listeners. You're listening to the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdul Shin. And the topic for discussion is New Year, New Beginnings. And you can join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 313 66. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 313 66. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to you, Brother Rainer, because I want to go follow on from what Brother Gregory's been answering about love and self-love, and then talking about the spirit and a lot of what he said in there, just to explore it a bit more. So first question I would have for you, Brother Rainer, is there, he used the word spirit. Is there a spirit for, like, one spirit per person in each person, or is there like a spirit, the word spirit in everybody just being shared? So I just want to get that concept clear.
Okay. I think that's a very old question, and really concerns the things: are we individuals? Does each individual of us make his own decisions and is responsible for his or her own decisions, and is quite independent from a group, or from a group of people, or from the whole of humanity, or is there something like a common soul for all humanity, or better say, a common soul? I like to be a little facetious.
Yes.
For all the Bavarians, but I'm not saying that. That would be, or are the Germans just one common soul? And well, they have even research shows there is not something like a communication among groups of people, that some attitude or something flows from one person to the other, but we are pretty much an island, each of us, and are we are practically very robust in our opinions. We keep our opinions and defend them, or keep our beliefs almost to a completely irrational degree, irrational meaning an illogical degree, and we stick to what we have. And of course, sometimes one makes a little change, but I think in balance, that someone changes an attitude or an outlook is rather rare. And one seems to be rather independent. The ardent communist probably stays an ardent communist for till he's 65, perhaps. Then he might have a change of mind or change of heart. And so already a superficial observation of our fellow human beings shows that everyone seems to be rather an island, and having his own likes and dislikes, and his own opinions and things like this. I mean, just think of the dislikes and likes. You probably like to eat the same food as you liked about 7 years ago or 10 years ago. not an essential change. And even if you lived under completely different people, you probably do not change. Or if I like a certain writer, or I like certain kind of paintings, let's say I like impressionist paintings, I probably like them today as I liked them 10 years ago. There's definitely not a going to and fro without any logic. We are not, there's not an incredible plasticity where I just walk into a group of people on the street and suddenly I think completely different, or I can tune into that part, or I can tune into a Japanese way of thinking. Definitely I cannot change into a Japanese way of thinking, and if I paint a painting, it's in the European way of life. And for Brother Ekbenau, it's probably, if he tried to do an artwork, it would be probably in some African way of expression. And so definitely it seems I am what I am. And now, of course, we need a much more firm understanding of those things, because it is incredibly important. If I look at myself as an individual with my own spirit, that of course makes me completely responsible for it. And the big question now arises, how do I keep in contact with other human beings? And this contact, or the empathy with other human beings, we had a whole program about it, but that's the most important thing. This is some quality of our spirit to be able to pick up how another person feels, in what emotional state he is, and to live in a happy society, we must be able to do that. And many people have lost this faculty of empathy, to understand how another person feels at this moment, if I say something. And politeness, or the manners of a society, if they are really alive, they are never encrusted and just outward behaviors. They live on that thing. It is the respect for the other human being which has brought about certain societal conventions and behavior. And if it is not being kept alive by empathy, those manners will become just dry chaff, just dry rules without any sense. And and any society which is alive, or the people which are alive, the culture, which is the way we interact, will evolve to a more pleasant and more agreeable and more peaceful living together and a furthering of each other. That's really then the game. We further each other, but each one is his own separate personality. And that's why also it can be in a very good society, and you feel almost there can be a person which acts completely different from it. There's not by force that it, by osmosis, the attitude of the majority penetrates that person. If he's criminal and has a criminal bent and is characterized by a complete lack of empathy, he will remain that way, because there is not something like a group soul. He still will be that kind of a very inconsiderate, perhaps criminal person, which injures the other human beings which are around himself. So I would say, just looking with an open mind at how people are, you should come to the conclusion that we are separate as a human being from the other human beings, and we have faculties to connect with other people, to feel how they feel, and to sense if we do some harm or if we do good, if we spread a little bit of heaven on earth or if we spread a little bit hell of earth. That is in each moment, that is our decision. And we know exactly that a criminal, just by walking down a street with normal people, doesn't become a good person. And we must then really take that fact and say, well, all the evidence looks like this. We are separate human beings, and we might change, but this change is not a change forced upon by the outside. It's a change we have to bring about ourselves. And if we do not want to change, we remain ourselves. Or if we want to change to more evil things, we can also do that. So with that individual, there's an individual connected, an individual free will. And for the readers, of course, is the Grail message, of course, explains how the human being is built and how he connects with other human beings and forms groups and societal networks. But definitely, a clear logical thinking really makes one refute the notion that I do not make my own decisions and I'm not separate from the other human beings. So I pass it now back to you, Brother Saad.
Thank you for that, Brother Reiner. Brother Gregory, I want to come back to you, and again, it's following from what you were saying in your earlier answer, and that's to do with basically talking about this self-love, which, as you said, is really an intellectual thing, and really we are a spirit, which is, which is much more broader than that. And it, when you think of the word love, it's actually not love of yourself, it's love of everything, around and so on. So what I want to ask you for following further from that point you were making is that, has spirit got all these abilities, to draw things to itself, what it needs basically to live? And because we've been talking about people worrying, anxiety, all these things, resolutions we're making, and Brother Reiner has dismissed it totally, that focus on the kingdom of God and everything will be given unto you. So what I want to ask you then, Brother Gregory, is the Spirit already got all these abilities to draw things to itself? And but because the Spirit is, as we found out, we are an individual spirit, we know that now, which is living on the earth, obviously, on this earth, those of us here, and we are just not aware that the Spirit can do these things. So yeah, please, can you tell us about this? The abilities of the Spirit.
The Spirit itself is able to attract many things to itself, but at the same time, it has to decide what it wishes to attract to itself. Therein lies the responsibility, because the free will is there to decide. Otherwise, the Spirit will be attracting both good and evil and all sort of rubbish to itself. But because the free will is there, that acts as a balance, as a counterbalance. The free will to make free decisions and saying, this is what I will want to attract to myself. However, it must not be assumed that the Spirit is already perfect. The Spirit sets out as an unconscious spirit germ. It means, therefore, in order to be able to attract in a conscious or in a self-conscious way, there is that need to mature in the sense that it does something, it expects a feedback or returns. It is these returns it evaluates and learns from it. And that's where the maturity comes in. So, on the one hand, there is this intrinsic ability to attract of the power that streams out from the source of all. And on the other hand, being able to decide where it needs this power to be concentrated on or at. These are the mechanisms or the processes which the spirit uses, in its maturity. A deeper understanding, because one has only just given a summary, must be found in the walk in the light of truth, the grail message. How the interplay of decisions of attraction and repulsion takes place. When it is said it's able to attract, one might say, when we speak a language, you may hear of that language, but you don't understand. But if, however, one has cultivated that innate ability to understand the language, then many things are able to come into you and they make sense because you have cultivated your inner abilities to grasp or to understand this language. Such attraction, which one may also refer to the attraction of homogeneity, that which you wish to, experience, or that which swings internally with you, one may refer to these as, in quotes, in scientific language, resonance. For example, when you tune on to a radio, you might get a particular station. If you tune off from that frequency, from that quality, you will not get that station. So there is this filter. The spirit is able to use its innate abilities as a filter. That means using the attraction of homogeneity, is able to tune in and is able to swing with it and experience. It's in experiencing because it understands that particular language that it matures. It's the same thing with creation itself. When the spirit, in striving to tune in, is able to understand the language that creation speaks to it. For it itself is a child of creation, striving to become a child of the light. That means the process in which is able to understand the language with the light, or which the Lord Almighty grants it, the language that the Lord Almighty speaks in this creation, as long as the Spirit strives to understand it, is able to now swing in such a way that it becomes of benefit to first itself and then to its neighborhood. By its neighborhood, I'm not just talking of those who live around it, but those who are of similar emotions, or those who strive to live in accordance with the will of the Lord Almighty. So these things are very well connected. The walk in the light of truth presents more like a map of what creation is, what the human spirit is, what it has come to do, and what it must do if it wishes to have everlasting life. Like we said before, that is the basis of all the discussions one is carrying out. That only when those innate qualities have been cultivated, similar to someone learning a language, only when you can speak the language which creation understands, knowing all the laws which help you to ascend or to descend, when that becomes very clear to you, you are now able to move forward confidently because you understand and you know how to receive the gifts which have been passed on to you.
Thank you for that, Brother Gregory. I'm going to move now to more on this New Year resolution business. And I know that's not our favorite topic for that resolution as such, but just the concepts of it. So I want to go through them. So Brother Ryan, I've got the next question for you now. Again, this is something I found in research, which is suggested that something you need to let go of, either it's something you're attached to, an idea or a relationship or a substance even, something like that. And the suggestion is to let go of that, whatever that you're attached to, because your a lot of energy is going into that. And once you are let go, let's say we do 100 of things in our activities that we do, at least we can give up one. And when we give one of those up, which is, tying us up, tying us down, and then we will feel better. So what do you think about this sort of idea that we need to sort of let go of something, give up something, and so if we're not so tied down?
Well, of course, that's a very important topic, and I think the only logical answer is you should let go of things which are not useful to you. Those things which are useful to you, you should keep, especially if you look at from a spiritual point of view, that from which you spiritually benefit, this you must keep. And that which is spiritually detrimental, or which keeps you from spiritually advancing, you must cast aside. And that's also perfectly, that's also true of all other things. And that really answers in all simplicity the question. Of course, now you love to do something, and if you enjoy to do something, and from this kind of activity, you learn many things. You mature. Your spirit widens its understanding. it matures, it becomes more mellow, more understanding, more patient. All those good qualities were enhanced. If you have such an activity, um, like a job which gives you all those things, of course you commit a crime if you just throw that away. You have been led towards it, and you have recognized this type of activity, that it is your activity, and doing it, you realize very quickly that you benefit from it, even if it's very hard and you have to sweat, or just because you have to sweat um, and expend a lot of strength to overcome all the obstacles and all the problems which are put into your way. But what you feel just by overcoming the obstacles, you feel content with yourself. You feel you're doing something worthwhile. In fact, I come back to the point, you are just doing something, well, good or beneficial to humanity. And that kind of thing, of course, you must keep, and you should not surrender it. But those things you need to let go of. You should immediately let go of. And we should especially think of the things which are not right and which create a lot of hardship to other human beings and suffering to other human beings, or our beliefs. There we really should let it go and say, wash our hands from it and say, I was wrong in keeping to that thing. It is wrong, and it is of no worth to me anymore, and I will try to try to find something instead which is beneficial to myself and beneficial also to other human beings. And those things which are not useful to us or are not useful to humanity as a whole, or are harmful to other groups of the humanity, we should really push them aside. We should recognize them. We should recognize them as what they are. They are not in line with the will of God, which always produces beneficial results. It only can produce beneficial results. And beneficial results in all directions, personally to myself, to society as a whole, and to humanity as a whole, to other people. And this is a good yardstick to measure anything by it. And anything which separates human beings into different types, into good, into enemies and non-enemies, or any of those ideologies, I should measure by that yardstick and say they must be wrong because they inflict hardship and oppression onto other things. Any religion, anything which says they are slaves in other and considers I have the right to oppress other human beings because they have a different belief, and therefore I can enslave their women and rape them and do whatever I like with them, whatever horrendous crime. That must be wrong, and I must get rid of it. And that counts for everything. So the answer is very simple. Let go of things which are not useful to you, to humanity, or let go of things and which cannot be true, because you believe in the perfection of God, and if you live according to the will of God, heaven spreads around you. Heaven for all the people who come in contact with you. And those things which spread suffering and hell, you should measure against that yardstick and say they cannot be according to God's will. I have to let them go. And you free yourself of a terrible burden doing this. And you will start walking towards the sunshine again. And I think that's what we really need. We live in a world without inner sunshine, and we have to walk again towards the sun. Follow the sun. That was is the big word, and that's what we have to do. Okay, I think this is.
Thank you for that, Brother Rainer. I want to go back to you on this. What you just said. What you seem to be saying is that we need to think for ourselves. Assess things for ourselves, weigh these things in ourselves, and then obviously there must be a way that we can do that. Sense this, like you say, if something we are doing is causing suffering or it's bringing joy, and so it's really what you're saying. Everything is, we can sense all these things ourselves. Would I be right to say that, whether something will bring suffering or whether it will bring joy? We have that capability.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in a sense, we know when someone else starts suffering.
Yes. Why I said that is because, as you know, in many religions and the teachings and so on, you have been given things, you could say, in writing. Don't do this, do that. That's not, you can eat this, you can't eat that. You must pray, or you must do all these practices. But what we say here, what you are saying, well, I'll just let you say that you are not saying that you should follow some formula like that. Oh.
No, you cannot. There are no formulas. Formulas are dead things once they are written down. A true culture always lives and evolves the way towards the more beautiful, towards the more refined. That's why I talked about the manners before, manners of society, the respect towards women, how you treat women. The manners always change, and they never can be described. They change towards the better. You cannot bar the way towards the better by writing it down and fixing it, because that thing which was once a freeing and creating greater freedom becomes, at some later point in time, it becomes chains which tie you down, and you want always to go on towards the more beautiful. And literature, for example, is such a place where those manners have been written about, and where the ideal of chivalrous behavior, which everyone knows, that has been developed in the medieval angels by the knights, which started developing that chivalrous behavior towards women. Where from that time we still have this this expression, the knight in shining armor. That's what the men should be for the women on this earth. And we have lost all those things, that chivalrous behavior or the gentlemanly behavior. We are throwing it out, and we have lost it, but we have to regain it, but in an alive way, and further it. Now, any religions have horrible rules, and in the Muslim Creed in the Hadiths, of course, I just read it recently a bit. I was really shocked by the bit, so I'm not talking about it, but it prescribed a very specific type of human activity, and that was all set down in rules. This is, of course, wrong. If we live amongst other human beings, our sense of shame, if that's alive, that's the voice of our spirit, will avoid shameful behavior, and it will create a culture and manners and a way of doing things which do not violate or do not injure our sense of shame. And so we will have a certain way to go about the cleanliness of our bodies. We will develop bidets and bathrooms, and then the Romans did it, and a cleanliness which is wonderful, which at the time, and even not at the time, even by today's standards, for example, they had a physical hygiene which is just beyond anything they had, and it was in their culture to have their bodies clean, to take every day a bath. They had swimming pools, they had underwater, they had sewage systems with water. They had all developed these gross material things to keep the body clean and to be not offensive to another human being walking down the street and be smelly or something. And of course, it developed also more fine things, how to interact with people. And in an alive culture, the sense of shame will be alive, and it will lead us to more and more pleasant and respectful behavior towards towards other human beings. And that's again, we can subsume all those things, spread heaven on earth. That is the overriding theme. And spread heaven on earth is really surrender to the will of God. Because that if we swing into the will of God, we spread heaven on earth. And our morals, our manners towards everyone and everything, even towards animals, that will be not an impure thing. A cat is not impure or some stupid thing. It will be respectful. That might be a river, water, everything. We will respect everything and act in a proper way in that whole universe of things, of which we are only just a small part, but we are a small part in this creation, one small wheel, and we have to work in harmony with all the other wheels in creation. And every wheel has the right and is as important, is completely necessary. It's completely necessary. You cannot say simply, oh, women, they are second-class human beings, and I can do with them what I want to do, and they are only there to satisfy my sexual disciples. That's an awful thing to uphold, and such things, of course, we should get rid of them. And what helps us getting rid of that is that emotional sensitivity, the sense of shame for avoiding shameful situations, and the sense of beauty to avoid nasty or cold buildings, nasty architecture, and all the other many gifts we have in our spirit to do that. And I think one yardstick also, which I really want to mention, is there is nothing in creation which God has created which is not absolutely necessary. That might be bacteria, and there's nothing to look down. That might be grass. We couldn't live here on Earth without plants, so we must respect them. We couldn't live here on Earth without women, and so we should, as men, we should respect them, but also the other way around. And it goes with everything. We couldn't live without water. We couldn't live without the sunshine. We couldn't live without almost anything. Yes. So let's respect all that things which we are surrounded with and treat it in a proper way. So back to you, Brother Saad.
Thank you for that, Brother Rainer. Really lovely sort of, how can I say, expansion of, to give people understanding on this topic. So I'm going to go back to you now, Brother Gregory. Another thing I found in my research is the motto, let silence consume you, which is basically you let go of expectations, then you can't be disappointed, and then also allow life to unfold. So, again, living in the moment, you could say, but in silence, with the silence around. So, Brother Gregory, what do you think about that silence? Is that a good thing? And how does it, if so, how does it help?
You mentioned the word silence. Does it mean silence, that means one is unable to speak? Is that what they mean by silence? Or one is unable to think? because the words or expressions are used in such a way that sometimes their meaning become very unclear. Let silence consume you. Um, I wonder what that could mean, because the spirit, if it is alive and in full motion, experiencing things here and there, also exercises its ability in such a way that's able to perceive much. Although physically they may be silent, but spiritually there is all sort of things going on in its experiences. So many times one is unable to see the connection with what is said and what the actual meaning is. And that's why I said, what does it mean by let silence consume you?
Okay, what I understood it mean is to just be silent in a situation, not be silenced by, that you can't speak or you can't express yourself. Just to almost, I will use the word calmness, something like that, which gives you that atmosphere where you can be free, to receive inspiration, or where you're not letting your worries and other things, they say this is the noise, you can say, we make when we are having our thoughts all around us and, being influenced by this and that. So I would say that the silence is not about you becoming silent and losing your abilities or anything. It's just simply a state where you can act in a way which, you can act in a peaceful way. I guess that's what I understood that meaning of silence.
Yeah, although silence itself is able to, it's a state in which, if one were to remove the talking, I believe, the physical talking ability, one may say one is in silence, but at the same time, one's inner spirit must be in real motion, experiencing, being able to perceive that which it needs to utilize, use the energy which is passed on to it, being able to observe many things. The big problem has always been man talks too much. So in talking too much, he becomes confused, doesn't even know what to even talk about. So that becomes a distraction. Whereas in silence, to a large extent, is able to focus. And the distraction, the physical distraction on earth is, say, minimized. But also, one may not be silent in one's thoughts. There are the intellectual thoughts, and there's also the spiritual thoughts. Maybe the silence which is referred to is a quietened aspect of the intellectual thoughts, which now allows the streaming forth of one's intuition to point out the way, or to say this is a way forward. That is what they may mean by let silence, consume you. Because in that particular scenario, you have the intellect is not of much distraction. The intellect has been pushed aside, and you now have the spirit expressing itself.
I think
that's what we mean. Yeah.
Yes, I think exactly that's what I think is right, what you just said there, because in part of that it says allow life to unfold. So what we really mean is the spiritual life, and not this other intellectual thoughts, which are, let's say, interfering with our spiritual life. So
well, that is very helpful, and to some extent, that is what many monks did in the past. But as with everything, could be a double-edged sword, because what then happens, although one is in a secluded and one is not communicating as such, but deep in one's head, there are all sort of thoughts, all sort of questions, which are unuttered, and that state also drags one down. Advice could also be that do the best you can at any moment, but look up with good volition. All right? Be patient and also persevere in that which you do, as long as it's of good volition.
Thank you so much for that, Brother Gregory. That's a good way to finish. Yes, I'm going to ask both my colleagues to say goodbye to the listeners. We've come to the end of our show now, listeners. Brother Rainer, would you like to say something to the listeners?
Yes, I'd like to say a simple goodbye and be good.
Be good, yes.
Even if you didn't make a resolution.
Yes.
Just do it.
That's good. And Brother Gregory, anything you'd like to say to the listeners?
Well, one will wish each one a wonderful new year, filled with intuitive activities, never giving up, but always pushing on. Even if one falls, one should stand up again, persevere, and keep moving. Before long, you will reach that particular place spiritually which you wish to get to.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that. And dear listeners, thank you for listening tonight. We will be back next Tuesday as usual. And the topic for next week is Seek and you shall find. Seek and you shall find. I think we did say a lot about what we covered today. It could be something very similar to next week's show as well. But we'll definitely have something in there for some new things as well. So hope you can join us for that. And obviously I encourage you, my thing is to encourage, just like my two colleagues, that we really encourage you that you examine and pick up the Grail message. We can only share with you little bits and pieces of our understanding, but the real knowledge is in that Grail message about life. So yes, please do take that opportunity. It's called In the Light of Truth, the Grail Message by Abd-Rushin. I'm just going to spell Abd-Rushin, ABD-RU-SHIN. So that's the title of the spiritual knowledge that we want to share with you. So I wish you a happy new year, a wonderful new year, and look forward to you joining us. All the best, everyone. God bless. And we have Brother Sayom in the house. Welcome, Brother Sayom.
Greetings, Brother Sard. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. Yes. Welcome to see you after we had a week break with Christmas. But yes, Brother Sayom's back. And welcome to the show tonight. Anything you'd like to say to the listeners? What it's about tonight?
Oh, just stay tuned, if you can. And continue the flow of what's coming next, with my show. And yes, it is a new so-called beginning, an opportunity for that. Yeah, it is a new beginning. It's an opportunity for change, but because I'll most probably be talking about the energies behind, there's always energies behind everything you see manifest. And there's, you talk about the laws of God, but there is the laws of existence. And I have a controversial type of way of looking at when we talk about God and these type of things, because a lot of these things are religious dogma and human consciousness concepts and distortions, you see. But we got a new year and we have new things taking place. So I'll talk about that tonight. Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So dear listeners, stay with us on Bless Radio, and Brother Sam will be joining you any moment. Take care.